Thank you, Sophie. A very good evening and welcome to Look North. Our top story tonight. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner comes to the Rotherham hotel rioters set fire to as police watch tonight for further disorder.
I think majority of the British people are absolutely shocked that people think that they can get away with behaving like that.
The BBC understands 2 protests are planned in our part of the world this evening. Also tonight, we will have the very latest from courts as more people appear in front of magistrates following the weekend's disturbances. Now, have you got a mirror will? A family fights back as one local authority attempts to get hold of money held in trust for children. And I beg your pardon, you have been promised a rose garden. A popular park cafe in Sheffield reopens.
Well, you had to be up very early to catch the sunshine this morning. This was Yeadon Tarn at around about 5:30. A changeable outlook, rain on the way later tomorrow. The potential for very warm conditions later in the weekend. Lots to talk about. Don't miss the forecast.
Hello there, thanks for choosing Look North. We've got a very busy programme tonight and this is how we start. South Yorkshire Police say they are putting more officers on the streets today with the threat of more disorder being planned. The police say their increased presence follows concerns within communities about reports circulating locally and on social media of potential unrest right across the country. Now, we're aware of a number of businesses closing early, partly because of the concerns of potential demonstrations. In Sheffield city centre, the police have been given extra powers to order people to remove face coverings that they might be wearing. The BBC understands that at least 2 other demonstrations are being planned for our region tonight. We're in Rotherham this evening, where over the weekend 51 police officers were injured after missiles, including fire extinguishers and concrete blocks, were thrown at them. With the story tonight, Olivia Richwold. She's there now as the community is still coming to terms with what happened over the weekend. Olivia.
Thanks, Tom. Yes, here at Rotherham Minster, a peace vigil is due to get underway in around half an hour's time. It's been planned as a response to the sense of fear and unease in the community, with some people saying they're too scared to leave their homes. And it's designed to show a sense of unity, so people of all faiths and no faith have been invited to attend. Meanwhile, earlier today, the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner visited the hotel in Merthyr that was the subject of the riot over the weekend. About 200 asylum seekers were staying at the Holiday Inn Express when it was targeted by a mob. As you said, 51 police officers plus dogs and horses were injured in the disorder. Missiles were thrown, including concrete blocks and fire extinguishers. Well, the hotel is still very badly damaged, with the windows boarded up and many of them broken. The Deputy Prime Minister spent around 2 hours there today meeting staff and police who had become involved in that disorder. She also met some of the volunteers who've been helping to clear it up. And this is what Angela Rayner had to say to me after that visit.
The devastation I've seen is quite appalling, it's quite shocking. And what could have happened, you know, many of the officers who responded on the day put their lives at risk and some of them were injured. And it astonishes me that people weren't more injured by the level of violent behaviour by some of the people that came here. We will deal with the violence and the criminality. The police will do their job, allow them to do their job. We want to make sure that we continue that community feel and that we're not distracted by those small minority of people who think it's okay to be thugs and cause criminality.
Well, police presence has been stepped up across South Yorkshire as the threat of more possible disorder continues. Meanwhile, the Treasury Minister just transport police for their role in helping fight the disorder. And I asked him what ordinary law-abiding citizens could do to help at the moment.
I think it's really important to show unity wherever possible. I know anecdotally people who have called some of their neighbours who might be worried. I know that some people who I know have called friends and neighbours of theirs who are Muslim who might be concerned to say, look, I have solidarity with you. I want you to know how much I condemn what I'm seeing as well. Obviously, in terms of dealing with the protests themselves, that is for the police and the government to make sure they are brought under control. But I think that solidarity between different members of the community, making sure that we emphasise that we are united as a country, we want to get this under control and move on, those messages of support between individual members of the public, I think is important too.
Look North understands that some businesses have requested that staff work from home. We also have anecdotal reports that town centres, including here in Rotherham and in Leeds and Sheffield, have been quieter than would be expected, possibly due to that sense of fear. Here at Rotherham Minster, there's a social supermarket which should have opened today, but the volunteers there felt unable to come to do their volunteering here, so it didn't open today, which is a sad reflection of that sense of fear people are feeling at the moment.
Thanks very much, Olivia. A very comprehensive roundup there from Rotherham Minster this evening. And the Prime Minister has said those caught being involved in the violent disorder can expect to be rapidly processed through the courts. A number of those who participated in the events on Sunday in Rotherham have already appeared in front of the judge, including 2 teenagers. With the very latest, Ollie Constable, who's been in court today.
It's not often we come to youth courts. They're slightly different to adult courts, but still take place in the building behind me here in Sheffield. Yesterday, these 2 youths appeared before magistrates, standing in the secure dock behind floor-to-ceiling glass. Today, it's very different. In a courtroom on the ground floor, they sat next to their families. The atmosphere more relaxed, but the charges against them still as serious. They're accused of taking part in violent disorder during the rioting in Rotherham on Sunday. It was there where more than 50 police officers were injured during violence where a hotel housing asylum seekers was attacked. Today, during separate hearings, the teenagers, who we can't name because of their young ages, pleaded guilty to violent disorder. The 16-year-old boy was told he'd be back in front of a youth court in October to hear his sentence. The 17-year-old was told he'd be sent to the Crown Court for sentencing later this month. They were both bailed with conditions. Also appearing here was a man accused of taking items others could use as weapons to the hotel. Prosecutors allege Jake Turton drove a Ford Ranger pickup truck to the Holiday Inn, carrying wood and other debris. The 38-year-old of Darfield and Barnsley denied violent disorder, taking a vehicle without consent and having no insurance at this court earlier. He was remanded in custody and is due to appear at Sheffield Crown Court on the 20th of August. Ollie Constable, BBC Look North in Sheffield.
Thanks, Ollie. Now you're watching Wednesday night's Look North. Still plenty ahead on tonight's programme, including the fire service. They're begging you not to take a portable barbecue to the moors after a devastating blaze that's taken days to put out. Now, a story that's going to affect a lot of us watching tonight. The cost of care. It's a big worry for older people and their loved ones. For one family in Rotherham, it has sparked an 8-month-long battle with the local council. Louise Habersham's dad has already paid over £125,000 towards his care home fees. Now his assets have been practically wiped out. Louise says the council is coming for money left in trust by her late mum. Corinne Wheatley has this story.
This is mum and dad. This is on a family holiday in Germany. I would say this is over 30 years ago now. They were very, very hard working. Everything they did was for me and my brother.
Barry and Kay Habersham went into care together in 2021. Kay died a few months later. They'd planned carefully, making identical wills called mirror wills, stating that whoever died first would leave their half of the estate in a trust destined for their children and grandchildren.
They realised there would be some cost to contribute should the surviving partner go into care, which is what's happened. But yeah, they just wanted to at least protect some of their life earnings.
Barry has already paid £125,000 for his care, virtually everything he had. Once his assets dropped to a certain level, his daughter Louise applied to Rotherham Borough Council for a financial assessment. In January, the council said it intended to pursue the money left in Louise's mum's trust to pay for her dad's care home fees.
How did you feel when you found that out?
Just devastated, because I know this is something mum and dad took advice on and put in place to avoid this happening. I know it's cliched to say it's not about the money, but it's not anymore. It's about my mum and dad's wishes. It's got to be a fairer system. I think if you've got funds, then yes, contribute, but not to wipe out everything that somebody's worked for.
Louise says the council cannot claim funds from her late mum's trust because it's not her dad's asset, and the trust company, Countrywide, agree the money shouldn't be used in that way, telling us it's highly unusual to see local authorities attempt to claim assets in these circumstances, but add that they are seeing increasing attempts by councils to do just that. Rotherham Borough Council told us they wouldn't comment on individual cases, but say financial assessments make sure public funds are used appropriately when someone is allocated funding to support their care. Louise says the carers who look after her dad at Leyden Court are excellent, but the financial dispute has been stressful. At one stage, the home said her dad would be evicted within a month if the fees weren't paid. The home has declined to comment.
It's exhausting, and I'm not afraid to send emails, try and get the powers that be to do something, and I just think of families that don't have someone to fight their corner, that have just accepted it when it's not right. They'd be distraught. That's the saving grace. Mum's not here, Dad doesn't know. They would be distraught, but I hope they'd be a little bit proud as well that I'm fighting it.
Louise's dad is now 85 and his dementia is at an advanced stage.
Let's have a look at you. Very nice.
He's a special man. He's a very special man. He's worked very hard, all about his family. And yeah. It's just my dad.
And he deserves to have good care.
He deserves good care, and he deserves a huge amount of respect, which he's not getting at the moment.
Louise Havisham talking to our reporter Corinne Wheatley there. Now, earlier I spoke with a Law Society representative, Ian Bond, and I asked him if mirror wills were a fundamentally good idea.
They're a great idea. They're a very simple mechanism for a husband and wife, or any couple in a relationship, to jointly agree how to look after each other when the first of them passes away, and then to choose another set of beneficiaries, usually their children, but it doesn't have to be, for when the survivor of them passes away.
It must be quite a common arrangement. So how does it work when a partner sadly passes away? Who does the money go to?
So it can either be outright or into a trust. And a trust comes with protection, and it sets out the rules of how the surviving spouse is to be looked after. Trustees hold the trust assets, and they decide how it will be spent, and those terms are set out in the will itself. Most trusts are designed with flexibility in mind to give the trustees discretion on how to act. They can't be forced into doing anything, but they have to follow the rules that were set out in the will.
In this case, which might be alarming to some people, it sounds like a third party is going after the trust fund, saying, actually, we're entitled to a share of that cash. Are they?
Well, most of the time, a trust will come with something like a memorandum of wishes that will set out the priorities. They're not legally binding, but those expression of wishes are guidance of what the trust fund should be used for in different scenarios. But it means that because the assets are in the hands of the trustees, they make the decisions, and they can't be forced to do anything that's not in the interest of the beneficiaries. So in most cases, the trustees will hold the funds and they'll distribute them in the best way in accordance with the original person's wishes.
So briefly then, in this case, you don't think the money that should be being passed to the children is actually at risk of going to the local authority or to another third party?
It should be in the hands of the trustees to make the right decision on how to use the funds for the benefit of all the beneficiaries. They'll have their discretions and they'll exercise it in the best interest of the beneficiaries. They can't be forced into doing anything that is not in their best interests.
Ian, thank you very much for your time and explaining mirror wills to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's take a look at the rest of the news coming into the newsroom here at Look North. And an inquest has heard how 6 people died after a motorbike overtook another vehicle on a single carriageway and then collided head-on with a car carrying a family of 4. 9-year-old Ruby Morgan-Roller and 4-year-old Lily Morgan-Roller died alongside their mother, Shannon Morgan, and their father, Shane Roller, when their Ford Focus collided with a motorbike on the A61 between Barnsley and Wakefield last month. Christopher and Janine Barton, who were both travelling on the motorcycle, also died in the crash. The inquest has been adjourned for now. A man from Halifax has been sentenced to 13 years in prison for murdering his neighbour. Bradford Crown Court heard how 55-year-old Samuel Moore stabbed his neighbour Carl Williams after a dispute in October last year. The 58-year-old died at the scene. Samuel Moore has been found guilty of manslaughter, and police say it was a low-level neighbour dispute which took a violent and tragic turn. A boy who attacked staff and a pupil with pieces of broken glass at a secondary school in Sheffield has been found guilty of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent. Sheffield Crown Court heard Louis Malott claimed he had received a calling from Lord Jesus Christ before the attack at Burley Academy on the 1st of May. The 17-year-old had already pleaded guilty to wounding and possession of a sharply pointed object on school premises. He's been remanded into custody and he will be sentenced later this month. Now, and unfortunately something much more serious, as acres of burnt moorland scars the landscape at Meltham Moor near Huddersfield, we're being reminded yet again not to take barbecues onto the moors. A disposable barbecue is thought to have started the fire 8 days ago. Crews are still damping down. Arzu Dutta has more.
Until just a few days ago, 50 firefighters were here at Meltham Moor battling a blaze that lasted for 3 days. In some areas, there is still a presence of fire, with it being deep-seated in the peat. The fire services said that this Meltham fire has been especially difficult to manage. It's far away from any water source and crews have had to run several kilometres of hose in full protective equipment to reach it. Firefighters confirmed that they found a barbecue where they believe the fire started. West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue are urging people not to bring disposable barbecues to the moorlands.
People don't realise with campfires and especially disposable barbecues that the heat that comes off of the fire not only transmits up into the air and onto where you're cooking your food, but it also transmits all that heat underground into the peat. And although you can feel that you've extinguished the barbecue, that heat has already gone underground, and it can take hours, if not days, for that heat to then build up to a point where the fire breaks out above ground and sets fire to the vegetation.
This Meltham fire is said to have spread and covered 4 kilometres of moorland. It required 5 fire appliances, 5 wildfire units and 3 all-terrain vehicles at its peak. Is this problem bigger than just the local area here?
It's been burning for over a week now, and because of the beautiful hot weather, it's obviously been really difficult. You can see how steep and how difficult this terrain is. It's really hard work for the firefighters involved, so we've been supporting with our specialist equipment and our teams where we can, just to try and get the fire out. These moorlands store a huge amount of carbon. There's about 1.5 million tonnes of carbon stored on Marsden Moor, and every time we get a fire like this, it's a massive amount of carbon dioxide released to the atmosphere. It also massively affects the air quality. So last week the air quality in the surrounding villages and towns was absolutely appalling. People having to keep the windows and doors closed. It's awful. So it has a much wider impact than just the vegetation here on the moor as well.
Fire bosses say that those caught with a disposable barbecue could face a fine of up to £2,500. Arzu Dutta, BBC Look North, Meltham.
Thanks, Arzu. Now, something much happier. Who's up for a cream tea? A century-old Sheffield Park cafe, which was under threat of demolition, has reopened following restoration work. The Rose Garden Cafe in Graves Park was closed suddenly 2 years ago due to structural concerns, and the plan was to demolish it. But the cafe has thankfully been saved after a community campaign. Testing the water, here's Mark Ansell.
They've been waiting more than 2 years, and now they're queuing out the door at the cherished Rose Garden Cafe. The mock Tudor pavilion has stood on the top of the hill overlooking Graves Park for nearly 100 years.
It's an iconic building that actually artists have been and actually painted that building because it's so iconic and so loved. And I think it means such a lot to the citizens of Sheffield.
2 years ago, the Rose Garden Cafe was closed by the council with just 15 minutes notice because the building was deemed unsafe. But the plan to demolish it was overturned after a community campaign.
Today has been really heartwarming because it's been the same people that are sitting in, that are coming together again, that were here on the day that we actually closed. And it's been too long that they've not been able to do that.
A partnership of the council, the Friends of Graves Park and the campaign group has been set up to revive the building.
The park should have a cafe. You know, the park is loved by everybody across the south side of the city and beyond, and it should have a cafe. So there's that aspect. But I also think it's symbolic. I think we can be too quick to get rid of some of our heritage. And I think, you know, what's happening recently shows that when groups come together, when people come together, you can make a difference.
The businessman and philanthropist J.G. Graves gifted the park to the citizens of Sheffield. 99 years on, and it remains a wonderful place to relax.
This belongs to the citizens of Sheffield, and they can come here and enjoy ancient woodland, ancient parkland, and visit the animals and see the plants and everything for free, and that means something really important.
There's plenty more work to do though, including the front wall, which is leaning forwards and needs rebuilding. A fundraising campaign is soon to start, so the Graves Park Cafe remains for another century. Mark Ansell, BBC Look North, Sheffield.
That is fantastic news. All power to their elbow. And even better, there might be some warm weather on the way this weekend, so it could be al fresco scones.
Well, courtesy of Hurricane Debbie that's affecting parts of Florida, it's going to distort the jet stream and potentially bring us some very warm weather. So you've been watching my reel on Instagram, I can tell, Tom.
I'm going to pretend some of those words make sense in some sort of sentence. Just whatever.
Well, you can have a look at my reel on Instagram after this if you've got plenty of time on your hands.
No,
but in the short term, we've had a lovely start. I mean, blink and you miss it. It was a beautiful start to the day there in Whitby. That was around about 8 o'clock this morning with clear blue skies. And look at that field of sunflowers in Sutton-on-the-Forest there. Gary sent that in, and again, the skies did cloud over. So if you've got any pictures you want to get on the TV, the address is out on your screen. And if you want to find out how Hurricane Debbie could affect our weather this weekend, there's a lovely reel there on Instagram, Paul the Weatherman. And it looks as though it is going to be very changeable. Rain in the forecast tomorrow. Better day Friday, and then potential for some high temperatures on Sunday, but it's not looking too clever tomorrow. Clouds will quickly race in from the west, courtesy of this weather system bringing rain across all parts, especially through the afternoon. And there has been some uncertainty, but this particular weather system now looks as though it's going to push to the west of us, and that will allow much warmer air to filter up over a 24-48 hour period Sunday into Monday. So a temporary spell of very warm weather on its way later this weekend. Now, the satellite picture shows how much cloud there's been. It is beginning to break up, though, from the west. So I think through this evening we'll hang on to a lot of cloud, and then overnight a few showers possible in the west. Further east it looks dry with clear spells, and we'll see lowest temperatures down to around 11 or 12 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow's high water times then, Scarborough 7:12, Bridlington at 7:29. So a dry, bright start in eastern areas, already cloudy further west, some patchy rain developing through the morning, and then just watch how that rain pushes in from the southwest, and the greens indicate the potential for some heavy rain in places later in the day. Temperatures coming in at around about 21 Celsius, that's 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It's wet tomorrow evening, better Friday, the hint of much warmer weather by Sunday. That's the forecast.
I have just checked your reel on Instagram, and now I've got to make a mandatory referral to HR, I'm afraid.
Right, OK.
So please
and
don't
you're
ever
still
do that
awake,
again.
that's amazing.
Yes, indeed. I think I dozed off in the middle of it. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for your company too. I'm back here with the late news at 10:30 from all the Wednesday team. Bye-bye. Who made you do it?